the Ministry of Finance of your country. So, without further ado, I will give the floor immediately to yourself, my dear friend. Please.
Thank you.
I understand you might have slides.
I have some slides. Thank you very much, Jean-Claude. Thank you, Thierry, for having us here again. It's always a big pleasure and a privilege. My job is to talk a little bit about Europe in a fragmented world, and as an economist, I would like to provide you with some data. Now, I'm saying in a fragmenting world and not in a fragmented world, which I think is a first sign of hope. And mentioning Europe and fragmentation and world, we should not forget that Europe has a whole own governance problem as well, and a whole own question of fragmentation in both ideological space and also in terms of economics. But I'll take a European perspective on the world, and I think this is important. Why? Because if you look at what holds us together, besides conferences like these, this is international trade, international finance. If you look at trade and goods and services, we still see that the European Union is an important player, and at the same level, more or less, than the United States and China. And sometimes if we follow the European debate, one has the impression that Europe forgets about that, that we have a huge role. And actually, this is 2023. 2023 was not a good year for trade. And nonetheless, the EU, if you do the accounting, has a larger share of exports and of imports of goods and services than have the United States and China, just by slivers, but still. So we have a huge responsibility, and if the Brits had not left the European Union, that would even be larger. So this is the first fact that I would like us to remember. The second, if we look at the world today, we see that it has changed. This is, again, the year 2023, and the color scheme tells you what is the most important trade partner for all the countries pictured here. Blue means that the European Union is the most important partner. Green would be the United States, and the yellowish orange shade means China is the largest trade partner. And what you see is that the South American space, for example, large parts of Africa, this region, Southeast Asia, now have China as their largest trade partner. And actually, there are more countries in the world for which China is the most important trade partner than Europe. This has changed in 2023, and if we look back in time, the picture would be different. So this is 1995, and you see the world was blue then. That is not only a fact of numbers, of data, it's also something that affects psychology, the idea of European decline. I'm a European and a proud European, and I think as Europeans we do the world no favor in being so much convinced of our own diminishing role. That does not help solve the global problems. We are a mini world on our own in Europe with many of the problems in governments that we see at the global level as well. And we have offered solutions in our past, and we might do so in the future again. But as you see, the dynamics are as they were, from moving from being the global trade hegemon to someone, Europe being now second, if you count the number of countries, to China, that has left an impact on the state of thinking in the European Union. The EU has engaged with many countries around the world, and there too Europe is a leader, is because there's no other bloc or no other political entity that has so many trade agreements. We have something like 42 or so trade agreements notified to the World Trade Organization with something like 74 countries. And this is, of course, when we talk about governance, important, because all those trade agreements have legal texts, have political compromises between all these partners. We also see these dark blue arrows that show to the point to geographies with which the European Union is right now trying to write new trade agreements or to get them passed. Mercosur has been on the agenda in the last years, and my own country, Austria, as well as yours, Jean-Claude, are quite skeptical. Unfortunately, I must say, because we have no other means than law, international law, to improve governments, to reduce uncertainties and to make progress. Europe is also speaking to many other countries in the world, from Australia to Indonesia, to India, and has been doing so for a while, but the process is stuck. It's not easy to find new agreements. And that is not so much a problem of the world itself, it's something that starts within Europe as well. So when you say the world is fragmenting, it is fragmenting, Europe is fragmented as well. There's a big discussion of trade or international economic relations being weaponized, to become instruments of big power rivalries. And in that sense, the question of trust is crucial. And when we ask this question in Europe, we might turn to the balance of payments data and ask, where are our economic partners and what are the sizes and quantities involved with that? And what we see when we do that is that the European economy is still a transatlantic one, and by wide margins. This is a matter of fact. Sometimes the discussions in our European unions are misleading. If you take the United States and the United Kingdom together, those two trade partners, international economic partners, dominate the picture quite dramatically. Let me come back to that. But it is not just a good trade, it is also trade in services. Then there's a lot of financial interactions as well between the transatlantic partners. And when we talk about services, that is where we still see the world converging, where we still see the world globalizing. Might not be true anymore in goods trade, but it is still true in the space of services. I'm coming to my last slide, which says that when global value chains are interrupted, economic damage is made, and that damage can be quite substantial. This is taken from a recent study in which I was involved, and I'm only showing here the European countries, but we did the whole exercise for the whole world. And the dark blue bars show what countries would lose in terms of their economic welfare if they were disconnected from global value chains. And global value chains is not the entire trade, it's trade in inputs and raw materials, it's not trade in final goods. What you see is that all these European countries would suffer dramatically. You also see a lot of heterogeneity. And again, Europe serves as an example here for the whole world. We're not affected the same when the global regime crashes. The dark blue bars for places like Luxembourg or Ireland can go up to -70. So disconnecting those countries from global value chains would be devastating. Now, when I say disconnecting, I mean that also European global value chains would be destroyed, which is, I hope, very unrealistic. I believe in the single market. And the pink bars show you what happens if global value chains are interrupted, but the European single market stays intact. And the big lesson for the world, I would say, that Europe offers here is that those pink bars are by such large margins smaller than the dark blues. So the single market, our free trade at the continental level, protects us from what's happening around the world. I think this is important for Africa, it's important for the Gulf regions, it's important for Southeast Asia, that regional integration is probably the most important protection against what's going on at the larger world scale. I'll stop here, but of course there is so much more to be said, and I'm looking forward to the whole conference and to our conversations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gabriel.